This is Seamer Station, and today we're going to be looking at the Forge Valley Railway Line, which is a railway line that no longer exists. In fact, it hasn't existed since the 3rd of June 1950 to passengers. It only opened in 1882 on the 1st of May, so it was a very short-lived railway. The railway line behind me, that currently goes to York and Hull, so it splits off and goes to Hull down the Yorkshire coastline, and then there's the line that goes to York as well. There used to be a third line which veered off to the right-hand side, which no longer exists, and that is where the line branched into the Forge Valley line. I haven't actually been to a railway station for so long. Wasn't sure whether I had to wear a mask on an open platform or not. And then this announcement came on and I couldn't quite hear it, so I ended up putting it on anyway. So that's why I had it on in the introduction, but I think I was doing the right thing. Just walking out of the village of Seamer towards a bridge. Now the bridge, the road actually goes over the bridge, the railway goes underneath it, and it's still in really good condition. So let's go and take a look at it. So I am stood on Seamer Bridge, and if you can see behind me, you can actually see where the track used to cut away. It used to run through here under the bridge, and then it used to go in that direction, as you can see, towards Irton. The line itself was actually really flat. It's in a valley basically. This is the Yorkshire Wolds over there, so that's obviously where it becomes hilly again. We've got this big valley where the line used to run through, and then on the right hand side, we can't quite see it from here, but maybe later on in the line we'll be able to see it. It's the foot of the North York moors, and the line actually used to brush the boundary of the North Yorkshire moors. Now the line swung round past the village called Irton, where there's a waterworks, and there's still a waterworks to this day. That behind me is the old waterworks building. It's still in use today. Now that wasn't actually opened until 1884, but the track used to run right beside it, and there was actually a siding put in place just for the water plant to power what they needed to power, basically with coal. Now I'm stood on a path on a road that's called Goosemire Lane, and if you look, this is actually where the track used to run. Now this bit behind me, this is obviously this is like a more modern installation, but the track literally would have ran where that is now. And if you look here behind me, this building here, that is the old keeper's cottage too. We're now in the village of Ayton, and I've got to be honest with you here, I used to live in Ayton for quite a long time. In fact, I got married in Ayton, but in all the time I lived in Ayton, I never knew that the railway line crossed the river. Now, that seems really stupid, but when you're a teenager, you don't think of these things, I guess. And so I don't actually know where it is, so I'm just going down this path now towards the river to find what I believe is the remains of the old bridge. It was 86 foot, it went across the river Derwent. It's the only place where the railway line crossed the river, and we're going to see if we can find it. I should actually point out that there's East Ayton and West Ayton. We're actually in East Ayton at the moment. The River Derwent is just to my right hand side. Once you cross the river, you're into West Ayton, but at the moment we're in East Ayton. This station for Ayton was actually in West Ayton, so we'll be going there soon. But let's go and see if we can find this bridge. So that's quite funny. Where I put the camera just a minute ago on the fence, I carried on walking down this path, and then I realised I must have gone too far. And actually, when you turn round here, it's actually really well hidden, but you can see the old remains of the bridge that crossed this part of the river. Here it is. Look at it. As we stand here, the trains would have passed. Basically, we would have been stood underneath a train right now, or having our head taken off. Not only is this old iron bridge really cool, it's actually a really good place to just sit and chill. It's so lovely around here. I'm just going to take it in for a few minutes. We're just walking away from from the bridge there. I'm going to keep walking down here. I'm going to get to a place called Holgarth Lane and a house called Burton House, which has an interesting story attached to it in relation to the railway's final ever journey. So up there, that's where the railway bridge was that we've just looked at, and it came across here and the railway line carried on along here, and this is Holgarth Lane. So why have I brought you to Holgarth Lane? Well, quite simply, on the last day, 3rd of June 1950, it was a Saturday, was the very last train from Scarborough to Pickering, and on that line there was lots of people on each platform sort of waving the train off, and there was a lot of feelings of sadness from a lot of local people because they relied on the trains. Most notably was a lot of mothers who who had prams, and they found that getting on a train was easier than getting on a bus. Still true today, isn't it? But one person in particular who took the last ride did it because her husband was in hospital at the time, so she did it on his behalf. It was a Mrs. J. Jennings, and she lived in this house here. It's called Burton House, and she is quoted in an old Scarborough Evening News article, and she said this: Mrs. J. Jennings of West Ayton, making the journey as a token for her husband who was in hospital, said she would have missed having a train to wave at in her line-side home, Burton House. So basically, this house, Burton House, the track used to run alongside it. And I imagine it kind of ran from here straight through here where that gate is, and I think it would have carried on going straight through there. Actually, now I look at it, I wonder actually whether the line used to run this side of the house where there's this snicket that goes through there. It would kind of maybe make more sense. I'm going to check on the map, so when I get home I'll put the map side by side and we'll figure out whether it's which side of the house it went on. But I've got a feeling, because it kind of looks very long and straight, that it might have ran that side of the house rather than where the garden gate was. But here we are then at the first station now. So this here on my left hand side is the old station house, and if we carry on walking just a little bit further we will get to what is actually the end. That building there is the old station. So that is the first station on the line. It's called Forge Valley. It's actually in the village of West Ayton. So let's have a little walk up to what was the old station building. Now, when I haven't lived in this village for a long time, but it used to be a council yard. But I'm just looking now, it looks very much like it's been closed down as a council yard. Forge Valley Station sat on a very large area of land. The yard had a goods warehouse, one of only 2 on the line, and it was the largest. There were also coal cells that were found at all stations and a sheep dock. Just west of the station was a timber yard, which had its own short siding. As we walk around this corner, this is actually part of the old platform that I'm stood on. You can see the platform going along there. Look, you can see the platform wall. That would have gone all the way along, and the tracks would have ran alongside that side of it. So I'm going to keep heading along towards Wycombe, which is the next station. This is the end of the first video, so if you've enjoyed it, please like it and join me for the second video as we go from Wycombe to Snainton.